He's here for the first time. Quite a few. Anyway.
Thank you very much.
Best kept secret. And we've got a very distinguished speaker here tonight. Is it our first Duke? I think it is our first Duke. It might be the last. As you all know, the Duke of Marlborough, sorry, what happens is that I have a conversation with His Grace for about 20 minutes, and then I want you to savage him with your question. No holds barred. And the idea is you, the public, manage to interact with our distinguished speaker. People who've led extraordinary lives. I mean, he's not normal. He's got a house which is quite large. I was a great friend with his father, and another Duke asked him, he said, "You are 88 years old. Are you on internet or email?" He said, "Yes, of course." And the other Duke said, "Well, mine is Duke at anec.com. What is yours? Is yours Duke at Blenheim.com?" He said, No, it's Duke at BlenheimPalace.com. Now, Jamie, if I may call you that, what was the one thing you learned at the Royal Agricultural College? I mean, did you know how to plant? I mean, was there a particular skill you acquired that you still remember?
I was one of the few people who, there's a competition at Cirencester, as some of you might know, which is to do 100 miles an hour up the drive. Most people accomplished it, but went into the reception with their car. I fortunately had quite a fast car and didn't go into the reception. But my time at Cirencester after that little episode was cut short.
But you must have learned something agriculture. I mean, after all, you are a squire. You have an estate. So was there anything at all that you learned at Cirencester?
Yep, absolutely. And I quote my grandfather on this, "Plant the seed and leave before the harvest."
And before that at Harrow, did you learn anything at Harrow?
Yeah.
What? Give me one fact that you learned at Harrow that you still remember. I mean, one historical fact. I mean, do you remember any history lesson?
Yeah, Brom, Blenheim, Ramillies, Unard, and Malplaquet.
Well, there it is. At least that's something. But listen, you, as we all know, has had a very colorful youth. And I just want to ask you, do you wake up in the middle of the night sometimes with nightmares, thinking you've gone back to those dark days?
No, I don't, because...
You've forgotten them.
Yeah, I've forgotten them in that sort of haze of oblivion. Having said that, having just recently come back from Russia, you do get these extraordinary weird dreams in the land of the midnight sun. It is daylight the whole time, and you do get these quite weird dreams.
What dreams did you have last week?
Not beaten by a bear.
Yes.
It was Bear Grylls country. It really was.
Did you see
it was
one?
worse.
Did you see one?
There were 12 shot.
12 shot whilst you were there?
Yeah.
Not by you, but by your security, presumably. You went fishing, right?
We went fishing, yeah.
Yeah. And was it good? Salmon?
Very good salmon, 186 fish caught in a week, where the river was 2 meters too high. But very interesting. In order to substantiate the generator that runs the camp, it's a 20-hour return journey to pick up the diesel.
So you must have woken up rather cold.
Cold. There was ice on the windows in the morning. But it was an experience. Having, yeah, go on, David.
No, no, no. That's good. I mean, that you're enjoying yourself. I mean, are you enjoying life generally? Are you, I mean, since you've taken over Blenheim, have you had a really extraordinary new lease of life? Invigorated?
Yeah, I have.
Excited?
I have, and a lot of it's been thanks to you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Well, I don't know how, but I mean, I haven't had your experience. Have you ever read the prodigal son in the Bible?
Yeah, I have.
Do you relate to it?
No, I relate to the other one where.
Well, the older brother.
Yeah, the older brother. No, I don't. I relate to the parable where the person crossed to the other side of the street.
What did he do? I can't remember. Which parable?
He didn't do anything.
But I mean, in a way, it is a story that relates to you, because although your father didn't embrace you with huge open arms when you came back, nonetheless he did so towards the end of his life and towards the beginning of your life. And do you remember the moment? And I remember seeing you and him dining having lunch at White's in a very most endearing fashion. I mean, did you suddenly had a feeling of being overwhelmed by his affection? I mean, you are English, I know, very cold, but nonetheless, was there a moment when you might have thought emotionally about your father embracing you?
Absolutely. I rang him up when he went to hospital, and I said to Edla, my wife, who's sitting just there in the front, I said, I'm afraid this is the last night, and I think we're going to, I put my mobile phone by my bed, and I said to Edla, this is going to go off at 5 o'clock. It went off at 5 minutes, and his consultant said, your father's had a massive heart attack. The precursor to that was, Dad, do you want me to come in and see you? He said, no, you're going to, I have just had a very large dose of morphine and I'm enjoying it, and I can quite understand why you had a problem.
So he finally came onto your side.
Yeah, he crossed the road. He crossed the road.
Did you tell him off?
No, I said enjoy it while you can.
Yes. And now that you are chiefly responsible for running this extraordinary estate, what's the most exciting things? I mean, you've got a shop which is larger than an air hangar and so forth. Do you take great interest in that enterprise, making money? I mean, you've got to make a lot of money, obviously, to keep your palace. Is that the one enterprise that you are most excited about and pay most attention to?
Yeah, we have got a new CEO who I get on with incredibly well. Our old one went after 10 years, which was probably appropriate. Dominic is great. We have a fantastic relationship together, and we're in the business now of farming houses. I'm sure Mr. Corbyn would be delighted.
Do you every day go and inspect one of the cottages and go and inspect the shop? I mean, the land, as it were.
Yeah, I do. I go in every day. I was in this morning with Edla, when I'm in work mode, I'm in work mode. But I think running an estate or helping to run an estate with the team is important to get away for a bit and come back with a clean pair of eyes, so you can see probably things that in a different light. How
hands-on are you? I mean, if your chief executive says X and so forth, do you sometimes violently disagree?
No, there's no violence in me at all. No, sometimes we agree to disagree, but no, not with this one anyway.
And living in a house, tell us normal mortals. I mean, what is that like? I mean, waking up every morning, with a ceiling which is as high as the sky, and then having butlers shuffling around in tailcoats. Is it a kind of luxurious living that you enjoy?
No, no. I'd be quite happy in a wigwam, to be honest with you, except the one where I've just come from. As long as my dear wife's next door to me, then I'm very happy. And yeah, it is. It's a great privilege living at Blenheim, and I've waited long enough for it. I am 62, but yeah, it is a great privilege, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I'm doing the best I can to be a custodian in my lifetime, so I can pass it on to my son George, and hopefully.
How old is George?
George is 25. He went to UCL, having said to me that he wasn't a fraternist and he wouldn't go to any university outside London. So I said, fine. Well, you better find yourself one in London. So he did. He went to UCL with no help from anybody, and he's now working for Jardines and doing very well. So, and
how about your other two children?
my other two children are Divine. Araminta's aged 10, Casper's aged 8, nearly 9, and they're
at school?
They're at school.
Boarding school?
No, day school. And they are the apples of our eyes. And
do they all get on?
They all get on, and George is the elder brother, and he adores them, which is really nice. So we're one big happy family, which, if anything in my life, I'd like to think that I've broken the mold of the stiff English upper lip. And if that's one thing that I've achieved, and the fact that I put down the necessary evils that I was engrossed in, then I think I've achieved something, because it's hard.
Well, in a way, you did better than your father. I mean, he married 5 times. I mean, it was all over the place.
Yeah, he left a trail of destruction, which we're...
Have you sorted it all out?
Well, we're getting there. Mr. Carr is helping rigorously.
I think that's very dangerous thing to do altogether. I wouldn't trust him with a barge pole.
No, neither would I, but anyway, he's...
But you have always been a very humorous person. I mean, everybody enjoys your company because you're always laughing. Do you think humor is a very essential part of your life? After all, your Instagram is full of extraordinarily non-politically correct videos, like the one you posted this morning of some farmer who got hold of a squirrel to wipe his ass.
Yeah, no, I like to mix a bit of the natural life with a bit of the wife.
Yes, I mean, I just think that it's very important for you to have this joie de vivre, and I mean, you are still a custodian of, one of the great palaces. What other changes have you seen since your father passed away? I mean, I notice now a lot of people hire your place for weddings, and you have art exhibition and so forth. Is that a flourishing enterprise?
Yeah, it is. And, I'm incredibly grateful to the Chinese community because, and this is where our interaction is with China, and I'm very proud of this, because a lot of Chinese come to Bicester Village, and then we have an open-top bus that brings them to Blenheim and takes them back to Bicester Village, and they go, it's like a yo-yo all day. And that's great, and this is really good for us. And I thank the Chinese and the Chinese government for making all this available.
Well, they think you're the son or grandson of Winston Churchill. You look a bit like him.
Yeah, and if I eat much more, I might end up looking like him. I don't know.
And I mean, the other thing about Blenheim is that it is so large. And how many visitors do you get a year?
We've got to the point where we're over 750,000 now.
Are you one of the top visited?
Yeah, we're beating Chatsworth now, much to much to the
But
Duke of
Longley
Devonshire's.
tells me that they have over 1 million.
Well,
Mind you, they have a safari park.
well, they have a safari park, and probably a lot of them get eaten by the hippos in the lake.
Do you hope they all get eaten by hippos?
Well, and probably Sulin himself is an attraction.
Yes, exactly. And how about your son? Does George have a real sense of responsibility of having to carry on soon after you, or is he dirtying his hands now, ready making a start? I mean, how do you slot him in to the whole system, or is he not involved?
Well, George is quite clever. Having got himself into UCL, he then discovered in the old sort of bylaws of Jardines that you could buy holidays. So he went to Sir Henry Keswick and proposed this idea, and Sir Henry said, "Well, George, you know, well done for spotting it." And the interview that George had, or the lunch we went to see Sir Henry, was going swimmingly well until the point where I wanted the ground to swallow me up, because George said, having said nothing through, or very pertinent questions through lunch, and then he suddenly said to Sir Henry, he said, "Now, Sir Henry, if I'm going to give you the best 18 years of my life, what's in it for me?" And I thought, oh dear, right, P45 before we've even got the P46.
What did Henry say?
He said, "George, that was an extremely good question. I'm going to send you to Hong Kong immediately."
Very good. And when you are working your way and so forth, do you wake up in the morning and you look at this pile and you feel, well, I really have got to keep this all going? Is there a glimmer of danger where Mr. Corbyn or the taxman or something sinister might happen that would cause you having to divide the estate? I mean, my question is there a worry somewhere that somehow in the modern world, which marches along with changes now that we don't expect half the time, that you might have to lose Blenheim in some way? Tax duties or...
No, I think having been made a charitable status now, which is about the only thing that Withers have done good for us. No, that's put us in quite a good state. The park and the house are exempt from the CTT, and now...
And who gets the profit?
Moi.
So how is that? Is it charitable status with you as the beneficiary? That doesn't sound like a very charitable status to me.
What about your charitable status?
I don't have charitable status. I grab everything I can.
Well, we know that. Yeah,
so there's something dodgy
but
going on.
you're one of the most generous men I've ever come across.
But it means that there's something dodgy going on.
No, there's nothing dodgy. I mean, where's Ali Spencer Churchill?
Would you be very alarmed if tomorrow the Labour government got in? Because they probably seize half your house. They probably put people in like wartime zone. Do you have any
I think
high tower blocks around your area?
No, but I think Corbyn, rather like Hitler, would probably rather like to live at Blenheim. So
why don't you invite him to Blenheim?
Like Mr. Trump.
Yeah, like Mr. Trump. I mean, have you tried inviting him to Blenheim?
No.
Very interesting to hear what he has to say about somebody like you.
Well, I think it might be quite a good idea. And
I mean, Cameron is your grandfather, but he's so coy. I mean, I remember him coming to open a shop, and one of his stipulations was that he wasn't to be photographed with your father. I mean, that's not very loyal, is it?
No, it's certainly not, and he'll probably go down in history as the worst Prime Minister since Neville Chamberlain.
He has already.
Yeah, he has already, and I agree with that.
Yes. So I think you should try Corbyn. How about Theresa May? Have you ever come across her at Blenheim?
No, but I think, may she resign?
She may resign.
No.
You mean in this Parliament?
No, may she resign?
Or may she
In fact,
resign?
I'm going to write to her tomorrow to ask for her resignation.
And who would you have in her place?
Capital B for Boris.
Be the Captain of Boris.
Yeah?
Yes. Yes? All
Because
right.
the UDP is sitting on the fence, and they'll jump off the fence, and we'll be
DUP.
left with one trump card, which will be Boris.
DUP, not PUP.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes. Do you know what it stands for? Well, if you're so smart to correct him, what does PUP
Ask the
stand
Democratic
for?
Party. There we go. There we go.
Smart so-and-so. Listen, I've had my 20 minutes, but I will interject. So I like a few questions. But before that, I just want to ask one other question. Was the food in prison really bad?
Which one?
Okay, let's ask the Duke a question. Who's got a question? Go on. Yeah.
Hello, I hope you don't mind me asking. What was it for you that finally made you get on the straight and narrow and leave the past behind?
Well, that's a very good question, and thank you for asking that, because I was only asked that a day, 2 days ago. I decided that I'd try out another treatment centre before I wrote my book on the Good Guide to Treatment Centres. And I was at the Priory at Roehampton. And with my association with Formula One, it was the British Grand Prix that day. And whatever was going on in my brain, I pulled back the duvet, and to coin a phrase, had a triple S, and I think you all know what that stands for: shit, shower and shave. And went to check out, and I haven't looked back since. So maybe, I don't know whether it was age, whether something went in my brain, whether it was my wife or not, I don't know. But it was around that time that I just, enough is enough. Because what anybody ever says, you end up in jails, institutions, or death. And that's, hopefully answers your question.
But I mean, you will also agree that only an addict who wants to be cured can be cured.
Yeah, I don't
It's
think.
got to be you.
Yeah, I don't think it's the word cured, because there's a huge debate on addiction, and I don't want to really get into the realms.
I mean, did the Priory do anything for you? I mean, I must have heard of 300 people who've gone there, but they're all still the same.
No, the success rate is less than 25%. Yeah, I liken it to a motorcycle with a flat battery. It gives you a kickstart, and then it's up to you after that. And then you can use the various forms of help, self-help, like AA, NA, or whatever. Or
You still go to AA?
I don't, because I used it as a bridge to normal living. A lot of people do use it on a daily basis or a 3 times daily basis. I don't, but I don't drink, as you know, or very little.
What do you mean very little?
Well,
What's your daily intake?
my daily intake is what you see in front of me, usually, or a can of Coke or something like that. I don't really
What,
like
Coke?
Yeah, no.
Oh, a can
You
of
know,
Coke.
people always say to me, you know, what happens if somebody put 2 lines of Coke on the table? And I say, I'd blow it away. Are you sure? Yes. I said, put a kilo on the table and we'll talk about it.
All right, another question? Come on.
Come on.
Hi.
2.
Hi.
Yeah.
Um,
Then him.
Hi. I'm just wondering if you have a favourite season living at Blenheim Palace. I'm over here.
A Favorite season?
Season, yeah.
Yeah, I do. You know, this time of the year for me is great. Spring going into summer is really lovely. I love Blenheim from the bottom of my heart to the tip of my whatever.
Toe.
The tip of my toe, exactly. I do love it. I have my favorite spaces. Yeah, no, it is wonderful, and I'm very spoiled. And sometimes I think that I don't appreciate what I'm a custodian of. But you know what? I do love it. It is a millstone round one's neck, but somehow it's in the blood. My forebears, or the first John Churchill, created it. I'm extremely grateful to him and for what he did for our country. It's a well-known fact that we would be speaking French together if he hadn't won the War of Spanish Succession. So, yeah, thank you for your question, and that's the answer. Autumn again is it's all great. Okay.
Okay. So running Blenheim is like running an enormous tourist attraction, but how's it doing, and how do you see it developing in the future?
We're doing well. I have to give credit where it's due. My father did start this off, but he sort of went around things a bit in the wrong way. It's a question of talking to the locals, making yourself available, planning and talking to people about what you want to do to save and keep our national heritage. You know, we are a World UNESCO Heritage Site, and that's really important. And I can only do what I can do in my lifetime before I hand it on to George. If something happened to George, God forbid, then there is a spare in the air.
Charming.
There's a formidable art collection kept in Blenheim. Do you have any piece of art, painting or sculpture that you particularly like?
Yeah, I do actually. Funny enough, one of my favourite paintings, apart from the sergeant of the 9th Duke and his wife, he had to stand on a higher step than Consuela Vanderbilt because he was a very short man. And Consuela brought in the height of the family. We were very small. We were like Welshmen, really. And my wife's Welsh, by the way. Her grandfather, the Commodore the Commodore Vanderbilt, started life as a ticket collector, as a Dutch Presbyterian. And I Googled him the other day, and in today's money, he'd be worth 3 trillion.
Where's it all gone?
Yeah, where's it all gone? No, I wasn't responsible for that, but there were huge death duties, as you know, in the 1800s. And Blenheim did have the best art collection in the Western world. Sarah, the first Duchess, was incredible. I mean, she was mean, meaner than my aunt there. But taxation there was, it was 98p in the pound. In fact, there's a very funny story that my grandfather went to White's in a black taxi in the old flat cappers, and he said, and he dropped a sixpence, the old sixpence on the floor. He said, "Oh, cabby, would you mind picking up that sixpence?" He said, "Don't worry, Your Grace." He said, "It's only a sixpence." He said, "Maybe a sixpence to you, but it's £1 to me."
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Duke. I'm Sean. I'm currently at UCL myself.
Were you?
Currently now.
Excellent.
Year 3, undergraduate. I've got a question actually. In 24th of June 2009, you was starred in appearance in the BBC TV called Rich, Famous and Homeless. And you made yourself homeless. What happened there? What was it like to be homeless?
It wasn't a great program, though.
You refused to sleep in the street.
It was called Filthy, Rich and Homeless, right. I was filthy. I wasn't rich at the time, except that I did, you know, the prison taught me well, so I knew how to hide the odd 20 quid note. I'm not going to go into that detail, but it was a bad program because they lied throughout and they didn't stick to the story, and basically I threatened, well, I didn't. I walked out because they'd broken the terms of their contract, so I walked out. And
Quite right.
Good evening. Could I
Hi.
ask about the Roman sarcophagus that was found, I believe, earlier this year, that was being used as a planter at Blenheim Palace, and an expert sort of walked past it and said, "Oh my God, that's sort of, you know, a couple of centuries or more."
yeah,
old."
you absolutely can ask that. It's been sitting outside the sitting room door with steps going down onto the front lawn, and nobody really knew what it was. I always looked at the detail of it and sort of thought, well, Dad would have said something, but then Dad wasn't very good at the Roman sarcophaguses. It didn't come as a huge surprise to me, to be honest with you. How we ended up with it, I'm not sure, but I will find out. And if you leave your name and address or your email, then I'll get back to you on it. But it was a great find,
It's worth a lot of money
yeah, and the money's going to stay in the house,
in the charitable status.
in the charitable status.
Which you are the
If
beneficiary.
I've got any aim during my custodianship, it is to try and buy back as much as I can that was sold in the 1888 sale, because that's what I feel that my purpose is, and I'm going to try and complete my I'm not going to complete my purpose, but I would like to try and get it back to Blenheim as it was in the first Duke's time, or the first Duchess's time.
Your Grace, the Prime Minister told us that the wildest thing she had ever done was to run through a cornfield, and actually with all her clothes on. Could you tell us what is the wildest thing you have ever done?
Arabella, that is I'm not. I think we might.
Probably wouldn't remember.
Well, yeah, I probably wouldn't remember, and there's been an awful lot of wild. There was a lot of wild child in me, but you know that's been safely
Road
put.
rage. I mean, I get road rage, although I'm not as brave as you as actually carry it out. What happened to that incident, road rage? What happened?
Well, that was this. Are you talking about the one in Banbury?
Well, anyone.
It
They're all the same.
There was a bit of. It wasn't road rage at all. I was just in the lane that says Sainsbury's, and I didn't really know, that I was in that lane for some reason or another. And anyway, the lady in the right-hand lane decided that she'd dial 999 because I cut in front of her. So I went to court. And my barrister said, look, this has got to be thrown out of court because your client was on the telephone and that's illegal in a car. However, that's not the end of the story because there were quite a lot of road rages after that. And eventually I ended up at Her Majesty's pleasure for a short time. And you never go to an open prison to start with. There are things called pink slips. and the governor of that prison has to answer them all by hand. And having put in 24 on the first day, he summoned me to his office and said, Blandford, as I was in those days, get your kit together. You're going down to Spring Hill, which is an open prison, in 2 minutes. So that was the way of getting out of Category B prison. Thank you.
Your Grace, I think it's great to hear how you got back onto the straight and narrow, and I don't think that's easy for anybody, so I think that's great. I just wondered if you have a role, or would like or consider having a role, of getting and helping others get back on the straight and narrow.
You're absolutely right. You know, there's a thing in AA and AA. In order to keep it, you've got to give it away, and you're absolutely right. My wife volunteers for Helen and Douglas House on a weekly basis, and whether it's changing bedpans or cooking or whatever, she does a wonderful job. I think that they call it a selfish program, and I think you've got to be right in yourself before you give it back. I feel that I am right in myself now in order to give things back. And I have been approached by local organisations, Whitney-based in Oxfordshire, to talk to people who have got a problem, and I'd be more than happy to do that, because I'm a strict believer in order to keep it, you've got to give it away. And I think that can be used in any walk of life. So yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for reminding me to get on with that. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
In historical terms, of all your forefathers, who's the most interesting?
Well, I think obviously the first Duke was the most interesting, because he defied Queen Anne's orders not to march the army from the Low Countries and Flanders down to Blenheim in Bavaria. So he disobeyed her, and it seems to run through the family, this disobedience. But hopefully it will stop with George. Maybe not. Anyway, he did, and he was a wonderful general, because he looked after his men, and he had this wonderful nickname of Corporal John. Because he was a man, just like any other regular. So Corporal John, he was called, and Corporal John invented the Marlborough cart. The Marlborough cart was easy to push through mud. So he marched from the Low Countries all the way down to Bavaria, and he also paid for all the food. So he wasn't waging war with the French. So he obviously had a good brain. Leopold II, who was the Holy Roman Emperor at the time, said, "Would you take on my useless nephew, the Prince Eugene of Savoy?" Prince Eugene of Savoy actually became an extremely competent general. And then we were created Princes of Mindelheim and Swabia before Queen Anne gave us the dukedom, hence the double M. Marlborough, Mindelheim, or Mindelheim, Marlborough. But no, I mean, there's been all types of dukes. The fifth one was very profligate, as was the eighth one. In fact, the eighth one bought the rights of the telephone from Graham Bell, Alexander Graham Bell. And yeah, I think madness probably runs in your family too, doesn't it? I think we're all mad, slightly mad, or not mad, but we've all got our individual traits. And
go back to Bavaria and how you treated. Do they remember you? I mean, your family. I mean, in Germany.
How they treat
Yeah,
it.
when you go back, do you ever visit?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah,
do they hate you or do they like you?
No, they adore us. And in fact, we Edler and I went back in the electorate of Bavaria at the time kept on swapping sides between Louis XIV and you know the alliance of England and the Holy Roman Empire. It was very dangerous times because the Dauphin of France, of Louis XIV's son, was due to marry the Infanta of Spain. And of course that would have been a huge problem for the rest of the world. And we would be talking French to each other. I've had numerous conversations with numerous people in Oxford, and including my great nephew, who's Dr. David Gelber, my sister's son, who is wonderful, and a doctor age 32 of history. And he's a fascinating guy.
Louis XIV married Queen of Spain, Princess of Spain, didn't he? Louis XIV.
Louis XIV married, yes, but he wanted his son, the Dauphin, to marry the Infanta, his daughter, her daughter, but that didn't happen. And there was a great thing after the when he wasn't particularly good on etiquette, the first Duke, because really after a victory like that, you should write direct to the monarch. The monarch at the time was Queen Anne. Queen Anne had 17 stillborn children, which was a bit of psst in those days. And in fact, there was a Cornishman called Sidney Godolphin, who was termed as England's sort of first prime minister. At that time, there was a plot to put John Churchill on the throne and take Queen Anne off. He was a staunch royalist, and he probably didn't want to lose his head either, so he turned that down. However, the country was behind him, and he didn't take it. So I regard myself and him as the last of the Stuarts.
But I mean, your extensive knowledge of history, did you, like Jeffrey Archer, tell his inmates all these stories? I mean, when you were inside, was anybody remotely interested in any of this stuff, the Dauphin and the Henry XIV and your father charging the Krauts in Bavaria and Queen Anne and whatever? I mean, did you entertain them with these riveting tales of history?
No, because I changed religion when I went to jail. I became a Muslim because you got more food.
But how about Ramadan?
It wasn't the time of Ramadan. I luckily hit it just right.
Just afterwards. Yes.
Yeah, just afterwards.
You get a lot of Muslims visitors at Blenheim.
Well, it's quite hard to see them, isn't it?
Well, I think they dress rather differently.
Yeah, look, I've got...
You get a lot of sort of Daleks-looking women streaming over the bridge.
I've got nothing against the Muslim people.
No, nothing against them. It just, I just wondered whether they ever pay attention to Blenheim.
No, we're very proud to have our Chinese people visit us, and that's great, and long may that continue. Yeah, we do get a few Muslims, but and I'm sure they enjoy it just like anybody else, and they're more than welcome. And it would be nice not to have any terrorist activities going on at home, because it would spoil our national heritage.
Your Grace, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah, I'm sure you would.
The first one is, what's it like sitting on that really uncomfortable chair? It looks like a sort of prison chair, and your interrogator looks in great comfort in the other chair. Does it bring back sort of memories to you sitting on a chair like that?
Yeah, except normally you're handcuffed like that.
Oh, right. Okay. Very good. Now, my second question, well, it's a statement, set of questions. I remember your sister many years ago saying that she went on holiday with you once. And it was an absolute nightmare because you, what they call, worked the room from the moment you arrived, and by lunchtime on the first day, you knew every single person in the hotel. Now, is this because you're gregarious, or do you think it's because essentially you're quite shy?
No, I think these are lessons well learned from yourself.
Yes, you did.
I love a war in the audience. That's great.
Oman?
Oman. Oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we did go to. No, well done, David. Yeah, no, I did a lot of work on the beach, building sandcastles and stuff like that.
I think if anybody should go to prison, it's you, Carl.
Yeah.
I mean, you always talk about other people, experiences, and so forth. It's about time to when you get a bit of your the experience yourself. Right, another question, yes.
Your Grace, we clearly live in very rapidly changing times. I wonder if we might ask you to look far into the future of Blenheim and the people within it, and describe what it might be like in 3 or 4 generations' time.
I think that's an extremely good question, but I think an extremely difficult one to answer, and you slightly put me on the spot there, and I congratulate you for that. I think it's something that we can't anticipate or even project. Who knows? I really don't know. Only time will tell, and maybe I'll be looking from, the River Styx or up there, who knows.
I mean, do you, for example, conscious of the fact that now more and more younger people like to be engaged in the world, mainly through the change of media, social media and so forth, do you go out of your way when you have your trustees meeting and your strategy meeting, do you say, how can we get, like Mr. Corbyn, more and more young people coming and taking an interest in something which they don't really relate to nowadays because they think is just a piece of old history, fossil, and they're not really interested. How can you get them engaged and be interested in something that hangs heavily as historical heritage of enormous importance in the past?
David, very good question, and one that ceases to annoy me, because when somebody, you talked about our big retail space for our shop at Blenheim, which I'm proud of and get involved in. My father asked David Cameron to come and open it. He said he would come and open it, providing that there was no press. Then the next day, right, it was the Millennium Beacons, and there was more press that you could shake a stick at, and he came and opened that. So I'm not a great fan of Mr. Cameron, and I'm quite happy to sit up here, look into that camera, speak into this microphone and say, Dave, I wish you the best of luck writing your memoirs, because that's about the only thing you have done.
Well, there it is. Yeah.
The what?
Go on.
Oh, the pop festival we just had.
Many pop festivals. That is already.
Well, if he can go to Glastonbury, he can come to us.
Okay.
But we will make him sing for his supper. No, I think it's a good idea. I like that. I think it's a good idea, and I like David's idea of getting him to stay too.
I think you should offer him a Labour Party fundraiser.
I think we should invite Donald Trump and Mr. Corbyn at the same time. It's rather like having Dame Vivian Duffield and Sir David Tang sitting opposite each other.
Could I ask a question? I go to Kew Gardens, I go to art galleries, museums, and I get the feeling that there are many people like me, but not many people who are perhaps disadvantaged, people that don't have those opportunities or can't afford the entrance fee. And I wondered, is there a positive policy at Blenheim perhaps for state school children to go, or for families who couldn't normally afford it. I don't mean tourists.
No, no,
coming.
no. I'm totally with you. We have a very comprehensive educational department, and we're in the throes of having been made a charitable status, of setting up bursaries for schools. And that is something very akin to my heart, and it is something that will happen in my lifetime, I hope. And you're absolutely right. I think it's a great suggestion.
Why don't you just start a school for butlers, you know, because Chinese love butlers, and you'll be a perfect situation for all these apprentices to learn how things should be done properly, because most of the butler schools are complete shambles. They don't really understand it. They're very middle class. But, you know, ones in Blenheim, they'll be able to appreciate the proper way of education. And I think that you'll be doing a great service. And I think you can have busloads of Bicester Village Chinese and just offer them the experience of having lunch or dinner at Blenheim, charge them a huge sum of money, and get rid of lots of apprentices.
Well, as they're all as rich as you are, then that won't be a problem. No, I really am blessed by our Chinese visitors, and I think the Chinese visitors really enjoy coming to Blenheim, and I'm grateful to you all. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, well,
yeah.
There it is.
Your Grace, had your eldest child been a girl, do you think she should have been able to inherit the title and the palace?
Well, of course, the Windsors stroke Mountbattens have gone down that particular route or route, depending on which side of the Atlantic you come from. I don't know. I'm undecided about it. What I would like to ask you in return is if King George, right, has a girl as the eldest, and she marries the local dustman, what's going to happen? Does she change her name to I don't know, Joe Blow, or what happens?
That's fine. Members of the royal family has got ordinarily perfectly non-titled husbands, spouses, but there is. So you are on the side of primogeniture, still?
Well, I am, but having said that, look at our glorious monarch. You know, she's 90. She's done a fantastic job. Okay, fine, she didn't wear her parliamentary robes for the opening of Parliament, but neither would I have done at 34 degrees. So I think she's absolutely wonderful. She's a great example to us all. I think she's fantastic. As I do of the Prince of Wales, I think he's wonderful too. I'm undecided about this. I think it's something that needs to be thought about quite carefully, and maybe it should be may the best one win, because I think the world is changing.
So if George did not want your crown, you really will have a bit of a dilemma, because your second child is a girl.
My second child is a girl, but she's an extremely competent girl, and I love her dearly, and I think she'd make
I don't think you should have any hesitation in making her the heir. I think this primogeniture thing is going to go out very, very soon. And anyway, women want to be equal, so let them do it. And
well, I agree, David. I mean, does that mean that I can be interviewed by Lucy later?
No, you can listen to your wife a bit more. Yes.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the interesting answers.
Thank you.
If I may ask a question about Blenheim Palace, because watching that video, it's full of green, and I'm wondering, had you greened Blenheim Palace in any way, put PV panels, ground source heat pumps, that sort of thing?
Yes, we have. We've got...
To make it future-proof?
Yeah, we have. We've got 2 Archimedes screws. Sorry, but they are called Archimedes screws. And they work. They work better when we've had more rain than we've had this year. And we put solar panels on a lot of the non-grade 1 curtilage buildings that are within the park. You can't do that.
Don't put any cladding.
No cladding.
When was the last time there was a fire at Blenheim?
Well, I can't remember. Jane, can you remember when there was a? No, I can't remember. Can anybody remember? But no, I can't. I think, I was probably the one that came nearest to starting the fire, but no, thankfully, in touch wood, no. But we are very vigilant, and apart from Sir David and a couple of other persistent offenders in the smoking direction, we're quite vigilant on a no smoking household.
Thank God. One of the great, most interesting aspects of staying at Blenheim is because you've had to partition bathrooms to make them sort of what they call en suite. You've got to be very careful because you can hear next door very easily. And so I think in every bathroom you have walls have ears. So, notwithstanding this huge edifice with stone and thick walls and so forth, many indiscretions have been caught. When was the last indiscretion? I mean, do you have staff stuffing other staff that you suddenly come across?
Well, I had a very sad notification that Ted Wadman, who was butler to my grandfather and worked for us for over 50 years, he died the other day, and his wife died literally today. So her funeral, Beryl Wadman, is on the 4th of July, which I'll be attending at 1 o'clock. So, and his memoirs, sadly, went into his grave with him, which is probably an appropriate thing. Because they were full of indiscretions, and they would have made extraordinary bedtime reading, and hence the interconnecting doors.
Do you personally interview your own staff for employment?
Yes, we were. Edla and I were interviewing this morning for a new.
Do you have prejudices against LGBT or whatever the word is? I mean, lesbians, gays, transvestite, and transsexual. Yes.
No, absolutely not. And I'm completely pulled up by our human resources lady, who is wonderful, called Sarah Morris, and she's made me so PC that I go to bed dreaming of PC.
All right, let's have a last question, shall we? A good, strong one. Yes.
Yeah, come on, let's have a bit of a fight. Come on. Nobody's put me to the test yet.
No, there and there, yeah. Okay, 2 questions. You first, the lady.
I just wonder, as the palace is so big, I just wonder if you and your family actually use the spaces that are open to the public?
Yeah, we do use it, and actually I'd like to use it more. And there is a sort of partition between our private apartments and the rest of the house. I've got plans for instituting a glass. At the moment, it's like that stuff MDF at the back, which is a separation. What I want to do is put in glass, so you can see the whole 280 feet of wing, with all the statues and the busts. So that is something that's on the cards at the moment. And it also means that the public who are looking on the public side can look into the private side. And yeah, it's a good idea, and that's something that I hope to complete by, if it's not the end of this year, it'll be pretty soon after that.
Wouldn't they be rather envious looking in as we tuck into your caviar and being served with penguin-suited butlers in white gloves? Yes.
Well, yes, but you know, I'm not a man who stands on ceremony. I'm very happy. You know, having served a little time at Her Majesty's pleasure, anything, you know, like bottled water is a bonus to me. So, you know, but I'm not going back there again, I can assure you.
All right, last question.
What will Brexit mean for Blenheim?
I didn't vote for Brexit. If you really want to know, I had this discussion with my 8-year-old, and he said, "Dad, you cannot vote to leave leave the European Union." And actually, I agreed with him. He had a point. I think we're going through a very difficult period, and we will be going through an even more difficult period, especially if Mr. Corbyn gets in. And it does worry me. I was talking to my friend Viscount Rothermere yesterday, and he's thinking about moving his whole operation and associated newspapers to Southern Ireland as we talk now.
Well, that's not surprising, because he's been deprived of his non-dom status. So
yeah. Well, yeah.
That's the real reason.
But the frightening thing is, which we were talking about, is that he reckons that he's only got 4 to 5 years later left of the Daily Mail as we know it today, or the Sunday Mail, which is quite a frightening thought. That's because of social media and the Mail Online. Absolutely right. Yeah. And you know, the Mail, as you probably know, is one of the few papers that do make a lot of money. He spends a lot too.
All right. Well, look, it's been fascinating, and will you please join me in thanking the Duke of Marlborough